Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the webinar. It's now 11 a.m. or 11:02 Central Time. This webinar is brought to you by Eastview, and the subject matter is Landscan Global 2010, More Robust Data and More Convenient Access Options. As I said earlier, I'm Rodney Bursmith. I head Sales and Marketing for Eastview, and I am joined by Tony Mansour.
Hello, everybody.
I'm going to take us through the first few minutes. I'm putting the agenda up because I think it's nice to see where we're going to go. This should all wrap up within 30 minutes. It could be 35 minutes depending on the number of questions. To that point, this will be a monologue. We won't be able to hear you. You will only be able to hear us. And there is a feature on GoToWebinar where you can type in your question. Alternatively, actually, I prefer that method because then in real time we can see those questions and answer them throughout the presentation. But you can email questions. If they're quite detailed, questions about the data or how to use it for analytical purposes, email those. You can email those to landscan@eastview.com. But please go ahead and answer them as you have them. So here's the agenda. Basically, I like to start a presentation by telling people what they should learn. And so in this, many of you are not familiar with Landscan, as is evidenced by your answers to the poll that we had during registration. So we'll tell you what it is. And then for those of you that are familiar with it, we'll tell you how it has improved and the methodology that Oak Ridge National Lab down in Oak Ridge, Tennessee uses to improve the data. Tony will take you through how to access and use the data. We've got several different versions of how to use it. And then we'll go through some questions and answers and overall the release schedule. So that's what you should learn. You may learn more things, but at the very minimum, this is what you should learn. All right. Eastview, a bit of history on Eastview. We were formed in 1989 and as Eastview Information Services, and then Eastview Cartographic spun out of that in 1996. Eastview Press is where we publish. We publish books, we publish journals, and that's actually been around for longer, but it was a business unit within Eastview Information Services for many years. And then recently, we formed the Eastview MapLink. The reason we're giving this presentation is because the U.S. government, particularly Oak Ridge National Lab, which produces the Landscan data set, put out an RFP trying to find a single commercial distributor of the data to add value to the data, to stand the data up, to meet the commercial demands and requests for trials, and to ultimately invoice and renew the data each year. And so we were awarded that. Eastview was awarded that on August 1st. And so other than U.S. government distribution, Eastview handles all other distribution. So it could be an NGO in Africa or an academic institution in Europe or a telecom company in Australia. Anything outside of U.S. government distribution is ultimately handled by Eastview. Most purchases are very straightforward, but some are requesting interesting licensing terms because they're using the data, ingesting the data into something that they might produce and sell. And so all of those kinds of requests at this point go through Eastview. Whoops. All right, so Eastview is, we're headquartered here in Minneapolis. We have offices in multiple countries. Eastview Information Services is a publisher and supplier of Arabic, Asian, and Russian resources. And we supply those generally to academic libraries, government entities, and corporations. And then Eastview Cartographic is a publisher and supplier of geospatial products and data. And they're corporations, government libraries, NGOs. So one is basically social science, hard science, publishing coming out of predominantly China, Russia, and the Middle East. And then the other is managing geospatial data that's produced all over the world in a variety of formats. And it's our job to aggregate that and make that available for collections like libraries, but also very commonly within commercial production, custom projects. We speak multiple languages, and our tagline, Landscan, fitting very nicely within this, is uncommon information, extraordinary places with exceptional service. I'm going to, boy, this is a very sensitive mouse, sorry. I'm going to show, this is about a 50-second clip on Landscan. So I'm going to go ahead and click it and show it now, and then we'll continue the presentation.
The world's population more than doubled in the last half century and is expected to reach 10.1 billion by 2100. As population increases, so does land development, human movement, and population expansion. Land is the most accurate worldwide population estimation tool. Our global population database allows quick and simple population assessment and visualization. This extraordinarily rich data set provides ambient population at a single square kilometer level across the globe. Academic institutions, corporations, engineers, and military planners rely on Landscan every day and in a variety of ways. Landscan from Eastview, uncommon information, extraordinary places.
Thank you. Sorry about that. A little hesitation. Just clicked my mouse. All right. So that was basically a kind of an audio-visual view into Landscan, and now in writing some of the basic facts. This is the most accurate and authoritative global population distribution data set. So what that means is it's authoritative. The U.S. government invests quite a bit of money on an annual basis to produce Landscan, and they use a variety of authoritative sources from around the world. But at the end of the day, what they've produced actually is a data set that is extremely easy to digest and very, very easy and intuitive to understand. So while there's a lot that goes into producing it and a lot of very interesting sources, they create a homogeneous view throughout the world for all 850-some million square kilometers of landmass. And they produce it in a data set that just is extremely easy to use. This is the 11th version of the data. So it was originally produced in the late 90s, and it was originally produced for nuclear plume analysis. And so they have, as you'll see later on, there's a number of ways they improve it and methodologies they use to improve it. As I mentioned, it measures population at the single square kilometer level, and that's ambient population, so basically the average of daytime and nighttime population. The data is in GIS raster format. We distribute it via FTP, so the raw data for kind of power GIS users. We also host some web services that Tony will show. And we've stood up a web app that actually makes the data, this rich data set, accessible to all, even those that don't use GIS applications. And then further than that, the data is available globally within regions, so basically think of it as continents, and then at the country level as well. All right. Tony, it's just so. All right. There are a few ways that this data comes together, and please, if what I'm about to say doesn't quite answer your question, send those questions in. But basically, all of the land cover around the Earth is put into raster lines, polylines, or points. So Oak Ridge basically categorizes and assigns land a particular category, and then using such things as like urban Z-dimension, urban density, there's quite a bit of data via satellite imagery, via census data and demographic data at the country level that gives them a view into how dense a particular area is, what kind of buildings are made up in that area, what are the heights of the buildings, and what is the classification of the buildings. And from that, then they include and exclude certain areas of the landmass. So inclusions include any area that is developed. Exclusions are areas that would not have human inhabitants. So extreme elevations or slope, permanent ice formations, and water itself. And then using high-resolution imagery, they basically kind of normalize and dig into particular areas of the world where they need to make corrections on the data. So the algorithm does a lot of the heavy lifting, and I can give you some more description on kind of what makes up that algorithm to the extent that Oak Ridge is able to share that. But using basically just kind of site tools like imagery, they refine their algorithm and they correct it and modify it. Generally speaking, on an annual basis, they use census data, they use high-resolution input data like imagery. Computing technology and processing certainly changes, and then based on, as I mentioned in the earlier slide, a variety of factors, they actually go into the algorithm and refine that. And so, what you end up seeing if you look at Landscan from 1 year to, let's say, a previous decade, is a much more granular view into population, and that's pretty evident on this slide, I think. Specifically for 2010, because every year the improvements that are made slightly vary. For 14 different countries, they included more admin boundaries. They used land cover data that they substantially refined, and they refined it basically using land cover data supplied by the US DoD. They made refinements to urban built-up areas using high-resolution imagery, and imagery, commercial imagery as well as government-provided imagery has come a long way since 1998 when I just showed you that previous slide. And the level of resolution at the pixel level is extremely high. And Oak Ridge employs a team of scientists and PhD students, PhD candidates, that basically are put to task on this particular data set. And so they're the ones using the data to make the improvements. And then finally, as I've mentioned, algorithm refinements are made. And there's a lot of emphasis, of course, placed on settlement areas where people are settled. And so that's what gets the most attention, are areas that have built up settlements. Tony's now going to go over 3 variations of how we present the Landscan data. So the first will be using GIS software. And Landscan can be used in a variety of GIS softwares. The second is just pulling a web service. So we've created a link, and you can pull those into a GIS software. And then the third, as I mentioned earlier, is a web app. Actually, you know what? Let me just pause for one moment and look through some things. All right, good. We've got questions coming in. Everything looks like it's okay. People are saying they can't hear very well. I hope you're able to hear at this point and see very well as well.
All right, thank you, Rob. So for Eastview, one of my roles is I do quite a bit of data crunching. And I'm actually the one who set up a lot of these services on the web application. So I do a lot of just the kind of geeky stuff, which I wear as a badge. So I'm going to go over the data sets we include with the Landscan package, and there's actually 4 different data sets which are included with the package. We have the Landscan population data, which is the data at a square kilometer level. It comes with a country level data set and a first administrative unit level data set. And basically that means the first level down from the country, so your states and your provinces. It also includes a area grid data set, which doesn't include population data, but what it's used for is calculating population densities. So I have opened my ArcGIS software. I'll just pull in the data. We'll take a quick peek at it and what it actually includes. This is the LandScan population data set. This is kind of the bread and butter of the data set. This includes the population at the square kilometer level. So if I do a quick query on the data, we'll pick a hot area here. We get back the pixel value, which is, so there's 119 people in the square kilometer area. And then because this is raster data, it also includes a count. So there's a count of 38,000 pixels with this value. So we can query around and get these different population values. I'll open up another data set here. So that data set includes population values, while the country and admin 1 data sets actually include demographic information along with that. So if we pick an area here, Venezuela, I picked, we actually see that it includes the population in 2010 of the entire country, and then the breakdown of the population. So we have the total population, we have the total population breakdowns. So these are actually percentages of that total population. So if you take this value times the total population, you're going to get the rough number of, for this instance, children aged 0 to 4. It also includes those same population breakdowns by gender. So male and female, it has these same values broken down. So this is what you get. So this is the raw data, which if you are familiar with the data set, this is what you've received in the past. This is what your GIS users have been using in their models and have been crunching. One of the things that Rod had mentioned previously that we are doing is we're also hosting the data, which you can access via HTTP links. So these are OGC services, which means Open Geospatial Consortium, which basically means it's a standard that all GIS software can use. You can connect to it easily with all GIS software. You don't need Esri software. You can use your global map or your map info, your open source GIS software. You can simply add a WMS, plug in the link. It's a lengthy link. I'll copy and paste it. We provide you with this. You can get the layers, see what's provided, connect to it, go in here, add it just like you would data from your local drive, and you can just add it in here. And this is our hosted data. So what this is when you subscribe to the full data set, we just ask for your IP range if you want this access. This way, we alleviate a lot of the IT dependencies. So instead of passing around diffs, to students who want to use the data briefly or for a course, you can just provide them with these links. And what they do is they can load them in. As you saw, it's pretty simple. And then this is just a live link to the data set. So you can query it just the same, all the same population, all the same attributes, as you see here. If you are using Esri software, you can also connect in a different mode where you can connect to our ArcGIS server, to Eastview's ArcGIS server. Depending on what you have access to, if you have access to landscan or another data set we host, you can simply drag that in here, and then you can view the data sets, as well as you can pull off the legend and all this. Just another way to connect. So those are the ways that we give you access directly to the data. So that's the raw data itself, and then these OGC services. We've also stood up a web application, which Rod mentioned briefly. And the web application we came up with because this is a really powerful data set that has so many uses that expands just beyond your typical GIS user. So students all over campus might want to use this data because it includes this demographic information and these population data. So if they're doing urban planning or doing crop calculations, this data set is also very interesting to them. So all you need for this is a web browser. Any web browser will work. You can use Internet Explorer, Mozilla, Chrome. They all work with this. You just plug in the link that we give you, and if you and when we give you this, IP-based as well, so you'll have access. In this, we include all the same data that we just took a look at. We have the land scan by square kilometers, the first level administration units, and then the country level data. So this is just like your typical web application where you can view data sets. We give you a choice, you can adjust transparency to see what's behind it. We give you a choice of base maps, depending on what you want to see in the background, whether it's topo, a topo map, a street map, satellite imagery. We also include a couple other search mechanisms, which I'll demonstrate to you in a moment here. So we'll zoom into an area. Like I mentioned, it's like a typical web application. You can use the scroll wheel. You can use the scale bar to the side. And a nice little feature I like is the rubber band zoom. So if you hold down Shift, click, and zoom in, it'll bring you right to this area. And so why we stood up this web application is so that everyone would have access to this data set, not just the GIS users. And the search tools, which I'll be showing you in a moment here, really lay the data out in a simple format for anyone can understand. So we allow you to search by the pixel level, the admin 1 unit level, and the country level. So if I pick country level and I pick, and I just go to an area and I click, it's going to go out. It's going to say, okay, I found Egypt, and this is the population for Egypt. And then we put, instead of just giving you, those percentages, we actually do a little bit of data crunching behind the scenes and give you a nice graph here, which visually shows you the demographic breakdown. We do this by the total population, and then we also give the choice. If you click this button, it will give you the breakdown by gender, because sometimes there is a difference between the gender at those levels. So that is one way to go about it. And this is interesting because you can essentially click around the world and see the differences in the population breakdowns by these countries. So if you move from one part of the world to another, you can see how you can quickly see how these areas are different. So we have Egypt in here. We can click on Ethiopia and see how their demographic breakdown looks. And then if we click someplace like Italy, we can quickly see the differences in how these countries break down. So like I mentioned, you can click on the pixel level, first admin level, or the country level. And we also have a feature where, because we know you're not just interested in these levels, you're going to want to know specific areas. We have a search tool, which you can click on. You can drag and click, and it will actually bring you that specific, the population for that specific area. So those are some of the things we included in this. We also have the ability to search.
What's the layman's term for those that are on the phone? When you say admin 1, what's the layman's term for that?
So admin 1 is your states and your provinces.
Okay.
So for the U.S. here, I can pick Minnesota. That's where we're located. That's where each is located in Minnesota. We can click this. It'll take me right to Minnesota, highlight it, and give me information. And then one last thing is we included was a graph showing the top countries. That was a question we got a lot. Was, okay, we have this population data set. What's the most populated country? How can we view them? So we laid out here. You can pick a country. It will take you to that. You can click on a country. It will take you there, and it'll break down the demographic information for you.
All right, thank you, Tony. Now I'm going to navigate back to the PowerPoint and then specifically to questions that you all have. That basically is the end of our formal presentation. So at this point, I am just going to look at some of the questions. Oh my goodness. There are many questions. Let's see. All right, how many countries are included in the data set? All of the countries. Is South Sudan yet drawn?
South Sudan was not designated an official country by the time this data set came out. So currently there's 200 Oak Ridge designated 256 unique countries for this data set.
Okay. Let's see, can libraries retain a copy of a year's data set for archival purposes? Yes. Can we use the data set in Google products? How do you answer that question?
Yeah, if you stand up the data, if you have your own server mechanism, you can certainly, Google, they use KML, you can certainly stand up there. We also, if you're on campus, we also have the ability you can use our web services within Google, yes.
Let's see, do you have population breakdowns by single age?
The data set does not include it by a single age. It is just the age breakdown, so 0 to 4, 5 to 9, and so on.
And there may be some of these questions that we actually have to go back to the scientists on. So if we don't answer them, we will get you an answer. Does the population landscan come in .tab format that can be loaded in map info, for example?
Yeah, at Eastview, that's one of the services we provide is conversions and transforming the data.
What sub-national level boundaries are available? Province, county, okay, I think that's the admin 1 level. Is the data only available for 2010? This is a great question. The data is actually only available for 2010. The policy of the government and our policy is that the data actually isn't comparable from one year to the next, not in any official sense of the word. And that is because there are so many changes, so many improvements ultimately that get made from year to year, and the focal point moves geographically around. And so making comparisons would be like comparing apples and oranges. So that's basically the policy of when the data is available. Our licenses for Landscan USA, this is Landscan Global. We're not talking about something else called Landscan USA. There is a higher resolution data set just for the U.S., but that is not available at this point. What about showing growth in population rather than just levels? We will take that as an idea for the Landscan folks. How granular does the demographic data get?
The demographic data goes down to the state province level.
Admin level 2 or 3 data is basically not available. I mean, you can zoom in, of course, and get down to the pixel level, but the data itself, the organization of the data stops at admin level 1. Using the web app, can you download underlying data to use offline in a GIS program, or do you need to connect with the GIS or within the GIS program?
That is one of the improvements we are going to make in our version 2 of the web app. That's a request we had quite a bit was I want to be able to pull the data directly from the web app, so that will be coming out in version 2.
Okay. And version 2 is like in the Q1 of 2012. Okay. We're in essence going to be making 2 versions a year approximately, and the data, as I put on the slide, the new set of data will always be available on or about September 1st. Let's see, can you query the Landscan data layer within the web app or with the web app?
Yes, you can.
When you say all countries, does it mean that you have admin level 1 data for all countries?
Yes, that is correct.
Can we have a copy of the PowerPoint? Yes, I will. I'll create a PDF of this PowerPoint and send it to everyone via email. Can people download the data? We've talked about how do government contractors obtain. Basically, if you are a government contractor, you are affiliated, with the U.S. government. Make a request. Basically, go to you just do a Google search. Oak Ridge National Lab, Landscan data. And there's a request form for you to make. And then the scientist there will make a judgment whether or not you fall under the U.S. government guides, or if not, then they will ask, they'll let us know.
And one of the things, Brad, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they will provide you the data. But if you're also interested in these services, Oak Ridge doesn't offer the web services and the web application service like we do. So if that is something that is appealing to you, feel free to contact us and we can work out something for that as well.
All right. Thank you. Does the data go beyond gender, age, and then population count would be the other point, and it does not. Each landscan pixel is giving a number of inhabitants or a density. It's actually the number. So this isn't a density application. This is an absolute number application. Again, using an algorithm that is homogenously used across all of the square kilometers, but informed differently. The richness of the data that may be available in the hills of, the Atlas Mountains may be quite a bit different than the data that's available over the hills of the Appalachian Mountains in the United States. Did you want to say something, Don? No. Let's see. In web mode, can you get the numbers behind any graph created?
Yes, you can. That's one of the things I guess I kind of skipped over. But when you pick an area, so if you do, whether you do the pixel, country, or first admin query, it brings up the graph. If you actually hover above that column in the graph, it'll give you the population count and the percentage that is used for calculating that data.
All right. Is there any difference between your population and the UNPD population? Did you make adjustments to use censuses from different countries in the same database? That is a question that I'm going to ask Oak Ridge to participate in the answer. So I'll find out who you are, and I will get you an answer to that. Will a recorded version of this webinar be available? Yes, it will be. And there will be a link as well for that in case you, as a listener, want to share it with any of your colleagues. My understanding is that the landscan pixel data is for the daytime population. Is it available for the nighttime population? This is an ambient data set, so both the daytime and the nighttime population has in part been taken into account, but what it represents is an average of those time frames. There are technologies available that is producing population at daytime and nighttime, and Oak Ridge themselves are working on it, but that is not available right now for commercial distribution. Can the data be downloaded into Excel or some such,
If you're referring to GIS software, the GIS user can certainly export the data however they see fit. If you're referring to the web application, that is also another request we have that we're looking into for a way to someone to be able to download the data in tabular format.
All right. That's it for right now. If other questions do come in, please send them via email. You can send them to landscan@eastview.com. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and end this and stay true to our timeline. It's 11:35. I guess we wrapped up about 32 minutes. Thank you very much for your time and attention. If you would like a trial or if you'd like a sample data set, please email landscan@eastview.com. And thank you very much.